Okay, let's get into week 2, starting with the AFC East, specifically the last place AFC East team, the Miami Dolphins. The Miami Dolphins, I believe, had 13 picks this year, so there is quite a bit of picks to go through, including 3 first-round picks, in which their first one, they picked Tua Tagovailoa out of the University of Alabama. He's a quarterback. In case you that don't know him, he was the freshman that came in the second half in his freshman year against Georgia in the national championship and brought Alabama to victory. And then the very next year was destroyed by Clemson in the very same game. So he's had an up-down career. I am a critic of him. I did not think he was the best quarterback in this year's draft, but he could always prove me wrong. But let's go into why I don't think he was necessarily the best quarterback in this draft. He's injury prone, that's the number one thing. He only had 24 starts in his college career, which include a lot of games where he did not finish or play the fourth quarter because they were blowing out their opponents. He played on the best team in the nation. It was less of a challenge. It's a lot easier when you have all day to throw. Your wide receivers are wide open. Where now he's going to Miami, it's going to be a little bit different. He's going to have one of the worst offensive lines in the league. Wide receivers aren't going to be open by a mile. He's not going to have guys that are just going to catch the ball, run 75 yards, score a touchdown, and it's over. He's going to have to play 4 quarters of football. It's going to be closed down to the wire. So I don't know how he'll be able to handle in transition from going to one of the better teams in the nation to one of the worst NFL teams. Like I said, he already is injury prone. Just the few injuries at Alabama, he had a concussion, a broken nose, a broken finger, a sprained right knee, a left high ankle sprain, and a right high ankle sprain. A dislocated right hip with a posterior wall fracture was his last injury, which has kept him on the shelf. He didn't really play at 100% a lot, which was another thing, especially that last year. So with all that, I have to give the pick a C-. Herbert was available. They could have waited later on to go draft Fromm with a later pick and draft something else with this first-round pick. I don't know how Tua is going to be able to handle this situation, and I don't know how fresh he's going to be with this Miami team by the time he has to come in and play. And the other question, which I'll get to later, is whether or not they'll even start him right away because they still have Fitzpatrick. So it will be interesting to see what Miami does. In my notes, I just kind of have what I was saying earlier about how when you're at a top school like Alabama, it's a lack of competition. He wasn't being challenged, and you get to, as a quarterback, you get away with things, and you don't make the mistake in college because of the lesser competition and whatnot. And by not being able to recognize and or fix those mistakes, you come into the NFL thinking you're doing nothing wrong, and then you start making those mistakes, and it can be very demeaning as a quarterback, and it can hurt his self-confidence. So we'll see how he'll be able to handle that as well. So overall, C- for Tua. And with the injuries and the interesting situation he was in at Alabama, it was a questionable pick in my opinion. And I guess I will close with what I was going to say about Fitzpatrick. And I'm more old school in the quarterback approach of you draft a quarterback, you don't start him right away. I know that's not what teams do now because you want to utilize every year you can of a good quarterback or a rookie quarterback and his lower contract. And teams that are drafting a quarterback don't usually have a quarterback. However, in the case of Miami, I think they have a more than capable Ryan Fitzpatrick, and that Tua should not play until I believe it is week 8. It's their 7th game. They have a bye week. The week right before it, they have tough competition leading into the bye week. I believe it's Denver, San Francisco, Seattle. Those are not games Tua should play. He should not play. The earliest you start him is after the bye week. Let him get into the offense. Let him get into the league. And if you really are desperate to start him that year, that's as early as he should start, is that week 8, their 7th game matchup. And I think it was against the Chargers. So that would be a better game for him to start, I believe, if he's going to start this season. I wouldn't be opposed to them benching him until week 13 or so and playing him in the last few games, or maybe starting to put him in at the end of games, starting at the week 8. But I would really be careful how much they start him, as I do think that could have an impact on how well he will become. So they should be careful there. But overall, I gave it a C- for Tua. But that's not saying that he won't pan out and become a good quarterback. I'm just very skeptical of the injury proneness, the lack of experience, and whether or not Miami will be able to handle the situation correctly. Their second first-round pick was the 18th pick. That was my bad. And they picked Austin Jackson, tackle out of USC. I gave it a B. Their whole offensive line is horrible. They traded Tunsil. They got rid of the few good guys. They did have Shaq Mason, Tunsil. Oh no, they never had Shaq Mason. It was Tunsil and I forgot the other tackle's name. But they had 2 good tackles. They have traded them both away now. From what I know about Austin Jackson, it seems as though he has potential. However, I've read that his potential, it could be more slowly developed than others. He has technique and footwork issues, which may come from a lack of experience, but I don't know. He kind of also, it's been said that he needs to improve his upper body strength, so I think maybe, you hone out the technique and work on the strength, which he's now on an NFL team. So he could be a solid piece. It's not going to be a solid piece week 1, game 1, so it's not a bad pick, especially moving forward. They do need more linemen because the line was not very good last year. So I gave it a B. It's a need, but in terms of what they need, it's more of a slow developing piece, so they need a kind of instant starter. That's not who Jackson's going to be, and they should not treat him that way. So again, they need to handle the situation correctly with him as well, which is a trend throughout this draft, as you will see. A lot of developmental pieces for Miami. Moving on, their third first-round pick was Noah. I am not going to say his last name. You can look it up. Their third-round, 30th pick. He's a defensive back from Auburn. And frankly, I just don't want to mispronounce his last name. I am very bad with names. I gave the pick a B. Noah, he's a strong and physical corner, plays strong. He disrupts a lot of routes because of his physical nature of play and the timing between the wide receiver and the quarterback. He's a decent return man, so he could be used there. It's not really a need on their defense. Cornerback is probably one of their more sound positions, but that's a good thing because he could learn and develop from the cornerbacks that are there. And I'm not sure if Talib is still there. But they do have one more in front of Talib. I believe Talib was their number 2 corner after they acquired him last year. So there's guys there that could definitely show him how to be a better corner in the NFL. So I think it could, developmental-wise, there's more of a positive feeling about how this Noah developing at cornerback than some of the other guys because of the veterans that Miami has at that position. Noah's also good. He brings a competitiveness to the defense. So physical, strong, brings that competitiveness. He has good work ethic. He's good in run support, and he also was new to the position. I believe he played. I want to say he played safety and then was brought back to corner, but I could be wrong with that. Or maybe he was corner and brought to safety because of his coverage, so I can't remember. So, defensive back, that's what they have him listed as. So, developmental wise, we'll see, but he seems like a very solid piece. Again, year one, game one starter, probably not. But definitely another guy that has some piece to develop or room to develop. That's why I gave the pick a B. Miami then had 2 second-round picks, in which their first one was defensive tackle Robert Hunt out of Louisiana Lafayette. I gave it another B. Hunt's another player that's going to need development. He has experience. My bad. He's an offensive tackle. That's my bad. My O looked like a D. So, offensive tackle out of Louisiana Lafayette, Robert Hunt. He's going to need development. He has experience at left guard and left tackle, but he finished his last 2 years playing right tackle. Good size, good quickness. Needs to work on the technique and footwork. And he needs a little bit of polishing to become a starting right tackle in the NFL, but again, developmental piece down the road could be good. So they got Jackson and Hunt now at their tackle positions, which will be good for Tua moving down the line. But in terms of instant, not necessarily it. So I gave it a B. It's a need, but it's going to depend on how they, again, handle the situation. Their second round pick, 56 overall, was Roquan Davis, defensive lineman, and I can say that positively. He's a defensive lineman from Alabama. Interestingly for Davis, his best year was his sophomore year, so some have questioned the work ethic and competitiveness and the drive. But I gave it a B+. I mean, he's got elite football ability. He showed it. But like I said, his maturity and effort have really been questioned at times, which is not always something you want to hear, but maybe getting to the NFL, getting paid, will change that. And so again, they got to be on him. And so really this draft class for Miami, heavy on, it's a lot of responsibility for the coaches in developing and keeping their players in line. But the potential for Davis, I believe, is good if you get him in line and get him disciplined and everything, because he's very skillful player. So with that, we move to the Miami third round, 70th overall pick, Brandon Jones, safety out of Texas. I gave it a C. Jones, he plays with a very positive mentality, and he puts in a lot of effort, but he plays a very, very weak man coverage, and he has trouble anticipating the ball. He's not really a ball hawk. He reads routes very poorly. Route anticipation is not good. He is also a little small, and he kind of has trouble with the bigger running backs with more of a slender, small frame. So will he be able to help out in the run support's another question. And so while it's a developmental pick, I think you have even less to work with because of the small size and stature. And that's why I gave this pick a C. Excuse me. That moves us to their fourth round pick. 111th overall, Solomon Kinley, offensive line out of Georgia. Kinley, I gave this pick a D. He does have size, does have toughness, but I don't know how to put this, but he's just not an NFL talent. I think he lacks a lot of the necessary control and technique to be a solid lineman. and mechanically, he has just a lot of errors when he plays, and he'll just be eaten alive, I think, by a lot of NFL defensive linemen, and I don't think he will last very long. So while it was a need to go for offensive line, I think developmental piece, he definitely was not, and his roof is pretty low, so. I don't. It was not a very good pick, especially in the 4th round. You got to be getting guys that have some room to develop. That takes us to their 5th round. Excuse me. It's that time of year for allergies. So, what's their 5th round pick? 154th overall. Jason Strowbridge, defensive tackle / defensive end for North Carolina. I gave it a C- because Strowbridge, he just kind of lacks consistency. His numbers weren't very good, but some games he had, they were remarkable games, but he can't put it together for a full 12. And he had a decent junior year, but he just lacks control, lacks footwork, lacks the polishing, which probably comes from the lack of effort and experience. And I don't think he has enough talent and drive to become a consistent threat in the NFL. And so I gave it a C+ because of his short bursts. But again, maybe they could develop him. The coaches could stay on him and work with him. But overall, I gave it a C+. But there is room for development. With their 2nd, 5th round pick, 164th overall, they picked Curtis Weaver, defensive end, outside linebacker at Boise State. I gave this a C-. Weaver, out of Boise, he was very good. He had decent football IQ, gets into the backfield a lot, but he's not really a sideline-to-sideline kind of guy. He's not athletically not as gifted as your D1 Power 5 studs, and potentially speaking, I think he also has less. And I think he kind of lacks his coverage ability is not good. So falling back into coverage isn't even going to be a question with this guy. But even then, his rush techniques are not going to be good enough. And he's not going to be strong enough, powerful enough to kind of outmaneuver some of the better linemen in the NFL. So due to the lack of athleticism and speed and kind of girth to match up against the NFL linemen, I have to say I don't think Weaver's going to go very well or very far in the NFL, but he was very good at Boise, so that's why it wasn't a D. It's a C- from me for Curtis Weaver out of Boise. Round 6, 185th overall, they picked Blake Ferguson, line snapper. That's correct, line snapper, or long snapper, however you want to do it, out of LSU. I gave it a C+. I didn't know drafting snappers was a thing in the NFL out of the draft. And apparently his brother does the same thing for the Bills. So now they're both in the same division, but Ferguson is a good leader. He wasn't able to wear the number 18 jersey because of the linemen can only wear certain jersey numbers. So, but he did get the LSU. He did get to wear the number 18 jersey, which is given to the leaders on that team. And so he's a great leader in the locker room. He's good on and off the field. He has type 1 diabetes, and he does a lot of charity and social community events to raise awareness for the disease. So he's a good guy, good head on his shoulders, and he'll probably stay on the team, special teamer for the snapping ability, but he's just also a good guy to have in your locker room. So I gave it a C+. They probably could have just got him in the free agency, undrafted free agent, but they drafted him 6th round, 185th overall. With their last pick, they got Malcolm Perry, wide receiver, running back out of Navy, in the round 7, 246 pick. I gave it an F. At 5'9", 188 pounds. I'm not being mean because I'm sure he's a lot tougher than I am, but he kind of does look like a high schooler when he played on the field. He only caught 22 passes because it's Navy, and he was more, this was like the guy that the Raiders drafted. He's kind of more of a wildcat QB. He'll take direct snaps and run with it, and so in terms of running back experience, I think it's lacking. He's not going to be the running back that Miami needs. He's 5'9", 188. Wide receiver-wise, I'm sure he's not going to be much either. This is a pick that's going to fall out, probably an off-season guy only, and then he'll be cut. So I gave the pick an F. It wasn't very good. So overall for Miami, they got a C- from me. I think they missed a lot of opportunities. They picked guys early on that I think potential-wise don't have very much potential, and they wasted a few of their picks. So that's one problem, and it's not a good problem to make or have. And their pieces that they did draft that were good, that do have potential, it's going to be really adamant that they get to these guys and develop them and not rush the process, because these guys do have, some of them do have potential, and you don't want to give that up. But none of them, I would say, in my opinion, are sure bets, sure things to become stars in the NFL. They need development, they need coaching, they need discipline, and if they step up to the challenge, then it could be a lot better than a C-. But because of the lack of a guy where you look at him and go, okay, well at least they got this one guy they can count on, I had to give it a C-, which was tied for third in the AFC East, and we will continue along here with the AFC East. This was the Miami Dolphins, and next up will be the third place AFC East team, the New York Jets. So stay tuned if you are a Miami fan interested in how the other teams did, or if you're just a football fan in general. Stay tuned. Thank you very much.